Hi, second grade learners. It is Miss Davis here with another reading mini lesson for you guys. We're going to talk about a really cool skill that you can use when you're reading a book in order to help you have really great conversations about your book and maybe even have some ideas of what you could write about the book that you're reading. So we have one I am learning statement for today. Our I am learning statement is, I am learning to identify places in a book to talk about with classmates and family members. So we're going to talk about how you can mark places in a book that you might want to come back to and talk about. Because one great thing about books and about reading is that we can make connections. We can make connections while reading, and we can talk about our books with people we know. We might be able to recommend a story, have a book talk. We could talk about the illustrations. We could talk about the characters. So we are going to take a look at some different things that you can mark when you are reading a book. So when you read, mark places you want to talk about. So you might mark a page when you wonder why a character does, says, or thinks something. So a character might do something kind of crazy or kind of different, and that might spark something in your brain, and you might think, I wonder why they did that. So that might be a good place to mark. You might mark a page when the story reminds you of something. That's something that's so great about stories is a lot of the time it reminds us of things that have happened in our own life. For example, anytime I read a story about sisters, it might be a Frozen story, it might be a story like The Big Red Lollipop, it always reminds me of my relationship with my sister. You might mark a page when you don't understand something, or when you don't know what a word means. So if there's a word or a sentence or a phrase or a picture that you don't quite understand, that's a really great place to mark in your book because you could talk to a classmate or a teacher or a family member about it and they might be able to help you. You might mark a page when you like the way the author has written something. Maybe the author has written a poem or they've explained the sky in such a pretty way that you really connect with. That's something that you could definitely mark up. Oh, it looks like I forgot one. You might mark a page when you notice something interesting. So the words interesting and important come up quite often when we're thinking about marking pages in our books. Something that's interesting or important is a really great way to start a conversation about a story. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down just a little bit. There we go. So you might mark a page if you like one of the illustrations. That's the great thing about a lot of the stories we read in second grade, kiddos. They have amazing illustrators and amazing illustrations. The story that's shown on this chart, Pecan Pie Baby, is one of those. So when you're reading the story, if you notice an illustration that you really, really like, that's definitely something that you could mark to talk about later. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about with you guys is what we could do if we're reading a book digitally. Because if we're reading a book in our hands, if it's a book that we can hold, we could use sticky notes to mark our spots. However, what do we do if we're reading a book on our computer or our iPad? So the way that I would recommend marking places you want to talk about on an iPad or a computer is to have either sticky notes or a notebook nearby. Then you can use a pencil or a pen to write down the page numbers that you want to talk about. So let's say I'm reading the book Pecan Pie Baby and I realize on the third page I love the illustrations. I would very quickly write page 3, illustrations. I would write that down so that when I come back to my conversations about books, I can go ahead and see that page 3 was a page that was important to me. Because remember, we're looking for things that are important and we're looking for reasons to mark a page while reading. So second graders, I have a challenge for you. My challenge today is for you guys to pick a book to read. It can be digital or it can be a book that you hold in your hands. And I want you to practice marking places that you want to talk about. I would love for you to find at least 3 reasons to mark a page in a book, at least 3 places that you could talk about this story. So that's your challenge for this afternoon. And I hope that you guys have a really, really great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.